I think the Blankenship has hit the fan, no pun intended, but Don Blankenship, who lost that West Virginia Republican Senate primary, is now going to run as a third-party candidate, so that could divide the Republican vote and potentially mean Joe Manchin, the embattled Democrat, could just squeak in and remain a Democratic seat. GOP strategist Ford O'Connell, we have Olympia Media's Katie Frates, and former Ohio Democratic State Senator Capri Cafaro. So, Capri, this could change the dynamics, at least in that race. What do you think?
No question about it, Neil. I mean, there are a number of hurdles that Blankenship are going to have to come through for him to actually get on the ballot. He's going to have signatures to get him on as a third-party candidate. He's apparently, I think, potentially could be sued under the sore loser law.
Yeah, I didn't think it was possible, but I've talked to people there who say that the way he's going about it, he could do it. So that confuses me.
Well, if he, bottom line is, if he pulls it off, there's no question he turns into somebody who is a spoiler, who is going to split the anti-Democrat, pro-Trump vote, and really could hand the seat back to Joe Manchin. So this is really not good news for the Republican establishment, nor the Republicans being able to hold on to that seat in West Virginia.
Still, Katie, I've heard from others who say he didn't fare that well in the primary night anyway. He wouldn't garner that many votes. The people who would either vote for him or the nominee of the Republican Party, the Attorney General, are more inclined to vote Republican anyway and take their best shot on their best person, who would not be Mr. Blankenship. What do you think?
I mean, I think that's correct, but at the same time, he is going to draw away a certain number of voters. He's going to inject discord and chaos into what's going on. He's going to be an additional Roy Moore in this election, and that's not what Republicans need when they have the chance to take Senator Joe Manchin's Senate seat. And it's not that Manchin is the worst of all evils of Democrats, but if you have the chance, when you have effectively 50 seats in the Senate with Senator McCain in Arizona, you need to be able to effectively take this away, and Blankenship could ruin that.
Well, we'll see. You know, Ford, one of the things I noticed, too, I don't know how polling is going in the state. Obviously, Manchin is in a race of his life. But I was trying to play this out in my own head and thinking that if he does manage to get on a third-party ballot, he's going to demand attendance at debates that would happen, I would assume. And then if I'm Joe Manchin, I could say, well, if he isn't included, I don't want to be there. And you know what I'm saying? It could create its own little drama.
It definitely could be the Republicans' worst nightmare. And to your point, Neil, actually, Attorney General Morrissey is actually leading Joe Manchin by 2. And this is going to be a neck-and-neck race between Morrissey and Manchin. And frankly, it's one of the 5 true realistic pickups that Republicans have in the United States Senate. So essentially, if Blankenship wins out, beats the sore loser laws, and gets on there, 1 or 2% taken away from Morrissey is going to hand Joe Manchin a seat in a state that Donald Trump won by 40 points.
Capri, it's still possible in some of these other races where, regardless of what people feel about what's going on in the House, where they still talk a blue wave, though maybe not as blue, the Republicans have a very good shot at increasing their margin in the Senate, even with this, do they not?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I actually just recently read an article talking about, and I believe it was from the Associated Press, that was saying that in 2012, Claire McCaskill was on the ballot, and she was able to pull it out there. She's another one that is, you know, really on the fence, fighting for her life in this midterm election cycle. But because Barack Obama is not on the ballot, they're basically projecting that the African-American vote that has traditionally voted Democratic is going to sit at home. They could have made the difference for Claire McCaskill in 2012. They're not going to be there in 2018. And that's just one example of a place where turnout is going to make all the difference in whether or not Democrats can pick up or ride some kind of a theoretical blue wave, which I think is more of a blue trickle. But that's besides the point.
I'm glad you mentioned it, because, Katie, you could argue that in order to get a blue wave, people have to be in a mood for a momentous shift. And if the economy seemed to be deemed better than it was, and the view of people's own sense of personal value is better than it was, job security better than it was, job security for their kids better than it was, maybe we're missing something here.
Well, they are. Democrats don't have a message. They didn't have one during the election. They've clearly learned nothing. And on top of that, no one wants the message to be, we're going to impeach the president, everything's awful, and the economy's terrible, when none of that is true. So I don't think they've got a lot going for them. We've seen the first round of polls come out just recently showing that the Democratic edge in the midterms is within the margin of error now. Their lead has been slimming. So this isn't looking good for them, especially when they're so disorganized.
Ford, then what do Republicans have to do?
Well, basically, Republicans have to find a way to fire up their base, not hack off independent voters, put up some great candidates in some of these other races like North Dakota and Indiana. And if they do that, they're going to make gains in the United States Senate, and they'll be able to hold the House. What I would say to Republicans is if they hold the House and make gains in the Senate, it will be largely because of the Trump economic boom. But there's no one-size-fits-all plan. They might need to supplement their message, to Katie's point, with impeachment of Trump or immigration, because those are two issues that independents agree with Republicans on, and they really, truly fire up the Republican base.
All right, still early. A blue wave or any kind of wave is way too soon, but we'll watch it. Guys, thank you all very, very much.